Hello, and welcome to part 2 of our accessibility presentation. I'm Megan DeArmond, Research and Instruction Librarian at Touro University Nevada. Hopefully, you've had a chance to check out part 1 by Faye Mazia, our Electronic and Technical Services Librarian, also at Touro University Nevada. Faye and I originally did this presentation in July of 2020 for the Health Science Interest Group, a committee of ACRL, the Association of College and Research Libraries. Our objective for this accessibility tips shared in our 2-part webinar is that they'll be easily implemented into your practice as librarians and educators. I'll be sharing about the PowerPoint Accessibility Checker, Audio Described Video, WCAG, or the Web Content Accessibility Guide 2.2, which has been most recently updated in August of 2020, I believe the 11th of August. And then also about EEAAP, creating an equally effective alternate access plan. First, I want to talk about Microsoft's PowerPoint Accessibility Checker. And as far as I know, Google Slides and LibreOffice do not offer an accessibility checker that's built in. I've read about different apps that can be found, but I haven't tested them. I have, however, used this PowerPoint accessibility checker. And at our institution and on my machine, I had Microsoft Office 2013, and our department has already migrated to Microsoft 365. So that's what I'm currently using. And the checker was in the same place in both versions. So you'll find this in the top navigation bar if you have a PowerPoint presentation open and you go to File and then to Info. This is what the screen will look like. And you'll want to choose the second option here that says Inspect Presentation. And then you'll see I've circled here, check for issues, and there's a little drop down arrow there. And that drop down arrow will then open this menu, and you'll find the second one listed there is check accessibility, and that's what you want to choose. And then I've highlighted a few results from the accessibility checker. This result I chose because it comes up for me often as something to fix. When I'm making PowerPoint presentations, I often get caught up in the aesthetics of my presentation, and I will move images and create new text boxes and then move the text boxes around. And this can be very problematic for screen readers. So the screen readers are for those with visual impairments, and the screen reader will speak the slide text, shapes, and content in a specific order. So you want to make sure that the text boxes and images are in a reading order that makes sense. So if you delete the ones that are in a template and create new ones, like I often do, this can be problematic for the reading order for a screen reader. So don't do that. Learn from me and don't do that. One thing that's really nice that I just want to say, the accessibility checker tells you the result. It tells you why to fix it and then how to fix it. So I've got a close up here with a few of those how to fix. And then I want to mention too that PowerPoint has an option to use a screen reader with the accessibility checker. And this could be an important tool to try out. It would give you some empathy for how someone may experience a presentation who has a visual impairment. And then another example of a result that may come up is this hard to read text contrast. And that was something that Faye mentions in part 1. So I wanted to mention that this does come up with the PowerPoint accessibility checker. And it does offer some suggestions for how to fix that with your font color or the shape fill. The next thing I want to talk about is audio described video. What is it, how to use it, and an example of it. So videos, Videos should not only have captions for those hearing impaired, but they should also have audio description for those visually impaired where it's needed. Audio description provides a spoken description of key visual material. In other words, it's a description of what's happening on screen, online, or in a video, where there might only be images on screen or action on screen that closed captioning is not describing or accounting for. It's often what happens between dialogue. It's a subtlety of how someone looks or gestures with their hands that would be described and can be an important part of a narrative or a presentation. I've read that it addresses some cognitive issues, and I've heard others say that the description is like the attitude or the atmosphere of the characters. That if you imagine closing your eyes and hearing a video, that's what audio description is like. So I would like to play this short clip of an audio described video for you to have a little experience of one if you haven't already.
At the bottom of Pride Rock, a tall, flat ledge that towers over the rest of the savannah.
All right, so there is a link to this audio described video at the very end of my presentation if you want to watch more of it or if you would like to watch it again. Universal design principles suggest that every image presented include audio description to ensure accessibility for all viewers. Audio description does broaden your viewership. There is a website called youdescribe.org. It's a product from Smith Kettlewell Eye Research Institute. Netflix, iTunes, Amazon Prime, and many more offer audio description as an option when you're viewing content on those platforms. It is an option on many mobile devices. My iPhone has the option under settings, and then you go to accessibility, and then you'll find audio description, so you can turn it on a mobile device. Unfortunately, YouTube does not offer audio description, but certain players may provide audio description if you watch YouTube on them. So for example, if you watch YouTube on an Apple TV, you can have audio described video there. And lastly, I want to mention that ProQuest has been at the forefront of doing audio described video for libraries, and I believe offers this service for free to libraries that are in need of audio described video. Next, I want to talk about WCAG's 2.2 guidelines. I mentioned that these were last updated in August of 2020. They're still in draft form. So if accessibility is something that you are knowledgeable about or passionate about, the draft form makes it available for the public to comment on it. So I believe that you can still make comments to that if you so desire. WCAG was developed by the World Wide Web Consortium, otherwise known as W3C, to ensure accessibility to users with disabilities. When their guidelines are implemented properly, a user can fully experience all information presented online. WCAG 2.2 was initiated with the goal to continue the work of WCAG 2.1. The 2.2 guidelines, the content addresses improving accessibility guidance in 3 major areas: users with cognitive or learning disabilities, users with low vision, and users with disabilities on mobile devices. Many ways to meet these needs were proposed and evaluated, and a set of these were refined by the working group. And 2.2, I'll just mention again, is in draft form. One of the areas that's addressed is about navigation to help users find content they need and allow them to keep track of their location. This is often more difficult with people with disabilities. And then the slide I have here is another element that's addressed in the 2.2 guidelines, which is regarding contrast ratio. You want to, one of the techniques required to ensure that links are visually distinct and have this content ratio of 3:1. So the WCAG guideline illustrates this, and I thought would also follow up nicely with Faye's demonstration around text contrast in part 1. EEAAP stands for Equally Effective Alternate Access Plan. I want to talk about what that means and why you would want to create it. Sometimes there isn't a built-in way to make technology accessible to students with disabilities. This is problematic since accessibility is legally mandated. Institutions are required to comply with 2 federal disability civil rights statutes, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and the American with Disabilities Act, otherwise known as ADA. There are 7 elements to an EEAAP. I'm just going to walk through those 7 really quickly. The first thing you want to do is have a description of the issue. So you describe specifically what part of the system, software, or process is a known accessibility issue, and what part is not accessible per Section 508 and the CSU ATI standards. The next step is the persons or groups affected. You want to list out the person or persons or groups who may or will be affected by this issue, including the total number of affected persons if you know that. So groups may be specific. So it may be certain students in a department or a program. It could be members of the general public. It could be visitors to the campus, or all students or all employees. The third thing you want to do is name and list the responsible persons with their title, and if they are a campus employee, like what department they're with. So who is responsible for providing equally effective alternate access for the specified known accessibility issue? Number 4, how EEAA will be provided. So you want to describe in detail how the responsible department or person provides equally effective alternate access and how that will be communicated. So if, for example, someone's trying to access room availability, visitors could go to a different web page that contains the same information but presented differently in a equally accessible manner. The 5th element of your EEAAP is to list any resources required, including training, equipment, additional staff to provide equally effective alternate access for the known issue. Number 6 is repair information. So you want to describe briefly any relevant information regarding the repair of an issue by a vendor or third-party service provider, or if it's on-site employees that could do that, and the completion date. That's if there is repair needed, you want to have that in information and preparation. And then the last element is a timeline for unforeseen events, a timeline to plan, create, implement, and follow up on accommodation for access concerns or issues that are beyond the campus policy and or outside the realm of any of the questions or issues addressed above. So when thinking about an EEAP, you want to think of all possible elements or parts, instructional materials, websites, videos, audio files, office products, lecture captures, web and video conferencing, learning management systems, computers, laptops, smartphones, tablets, software, apps, all of those things could have elements that are part of an EEAAP. So lastly, I want to thank everyone for joining part 2. Hopefully you also joined part 1. So thank you for that as well. And I want to mention a couple of things. Accessibility is a team effort. Technological barriers can be easily and unintentionally overlooked. So I highly encourage you to talk with your colleagues, talk with other faculty members, talk with IT, talk to your librarians, have them look over your presentations or your materials, whatever resources you're using or plan to use, to make sure that they're accessible. As librarians, we are accountable legally and ethically. It's important to know and practice the basics. The WCAG 2.1 AA is considered the current standard. And then I want to mention that I heard someone say that accessibility is a journey. It is a process, and it's something that's continually evolving. So it's not always easy to stay on top of it. So that's why I encourage you to make it a team effort. The next slide here has references, and that YouTube clip that I shared of the audio description is here if you have interest in viewing that again, or viewing the longer clip of it. So thank you again for joining part 2 and for checking this out.